thank you so much for joining in today. So, today I'm going to talk to you about the story of learning, how the story developed. So, with the dawn of time, there was this crucible of civilization, which is the Indic civilization. It grew because of the wisdom of some sages. And they did impart a lot of wisdom, everything in the form of a spoken word. That word has continued to stay on till now. How was it possible? That is what we are going to see today. So, the first period recorded time, that we can go back and take a sneak peek into is the Rigvedic period. And it is in this period that they started imparting this knowledge. And the sages taught primarily their own children. And if any friend was interested, that friend would get added on. If the friend said, I want to learn, well, come on, join in. That's what the sage said. But then he also said, you have to follow certain set of rules. You have to do what I say, and in return, I will answer all your questions. I will clear your doubts. I will also give you food and shelter. So the others who want to join in this agreed. And then the several sages started replicating the same thing. So that was the kind of learning that happened during the Rigvedic period. So that was followed by the later Vedic period. And it was at this time a kind of Gurukulam system started. The Gurukulas, what we know as Gurukulas today, came into being. There was some kind of a structure in it. It was not so informal like the Rigvedic period. And the rules came to be followed everywhere. How should the Gurukul function? How will we treat the children? What are the rules that the students should follow? How can we admit the students or reject them? And all the teachers came to be known as gurus. That is why the name Gurukulam came into existence. They taught a lot of other things also there. For example, archery. But it was limited still. They learned the Vedas and they learned a little bit of archery. And whatever they thought society needed at that time. The Vedas were considered the ultimate knowledge. So anybody who comes to learn means they've come to learn Vedas. That is about the only thing. The Sutra period was the next because by then a whole lot of sutras were written. And it was at this time that we had people who warfare became a big thing. So all kinds of warfare, the rules of warfare, they learned. Then they learned about medicine because Ayurvedic sutras had come into existence. Then there was also this whole thing about building temples. So how to build, how to make the sculptures, that also came into existence. And then there was also many other governance related sutras that came in. What are the rules the country should follow? So it was at this period that learning diversified. Laws were written. So it diversified. Then came the Buddhist period. And it was in this period that we have the universities coming up. And all this credit goes to our great leader, the Gautama Buddha. He developed a series of universities. In fact, he developed ways of running a university. And it was based on what he said that these universities developed. he made monkhood something very important. So, ladies, men, everybody came to him, young, old. And the order of the monks was kind of the pattern on which these universities were developed. They were built on it. So, some of the famous universities, can you name them?
The Nalanda University.
Takshila.
Takshashila.
She,
These are the two names that really stand out because they attracted many people from China, from the Far East, from also from the West. That is the Gulf area. So India became very famous at that time. Not only because there was a source of knowledge here, but because Buddha sent his emissaries to the East. Many of his emissaries went to the East. He didn't send them, but they went to the East. Then was the period of destruction. Something drastic happened. All the pinnacle of learning suddenly came to an end. And that was the period when we were conquered by invaders. They came here for many reasons, not just wealth, but they definitely did not come to achieve knowledge, to gain knowledge. If you know, or if you remember reading in history, we had visitors from China who wanted to understand and learn, pick up the knowledge. They learned Sanskrit, they studied in Nalanda. But this invasion was definitely not for knowledge. So, with all this, everything came to an end. So, we did not know what exactly transpired in those ancient period of time. And what are the ways in which Gurukuls functioned? What are the ways in which they made learning a very happy and interesting exercise for students? However, there is good news. We did have some approaches which are visible when we analyze what we have in Indian knowledge systems. What are these approaches? Let's look at them. First approach. How many of us know, have heard of Panchatantra? Have you heard of Panchatantra? What are they? Panchatantra are stories. Stories that were built, that were written by Vishnu Sharma. He was a Brahmin scholar and he was hired by a king to tutor the princess to learn good governance. The king found that his princes were not very savvy. How can he hand over the kingdom to them? So he hired Vishnu Sharma, who took a few months' time to build these stories. He wrote them. They were already there. He did not invent these stories. These existed in the form of folk tales. And he brought them to a form in the form of Panchatantra stories. And with this, he trained the kings, the princess. The second approach is specific to the disciplines. For example, there are Ayurvedic related. There are books which told the gurus how to teach Ayurveda. Similarly, there is something for sculptures. Then there is the book Leelavati, is a very famous book for mathematics, but it built in what you can say ways to find out the reality in maths. So because the pedagogy was built into it, it was easy to teach Leelavati. The next is the Pravachan model. The Pravachan model is the same as your Harikatha, Villupata, etc., where there are street storytellers. So through the street storytellers, one could understand knowledge. Now, this is meant for public consumption, not so much for students in the Gurukul. So this Pravachan model is good to take the elements from it, but there is, we don't have a structured model here. Then the next approach is what is the Taittiriya Upanishad model. This is very similar to the project-based learning that we do today. Because the guru said, you go, learn, and come back. Ask your doubts. I'm giving you tasks. You go, complete the tasks, you come back, and you ask me doubts and tell me what you think. So it is a task-oriented kind of learning. So it's very similar to the project-based learning. And this Upanishad model has stood the test of time because questioning and inquiry base, everything comes in this. The fifth model is what is called the Kathopanishad model. Now, this is more the way a content that is taught is structured because it gives a concrete model. It follows the principle of taking the student from the known to the unknown. So when the guru wanted to explain something, he gave comparisons. For example, if you want to find out where is my book or my watch, it's in the table. Which table? The table that is near something else, near the door. So from the known to the unknown. So that way it concretizes what is abstract, and the student understood it very well. So this is also a very important model. So these 5 approaches kind of dominate. But above all this, there is this oral tradition that weaves everything through it. It's common for all the approaches. So what are the advantages of the oral tradition? First thing is, it stayed in memory. It never got lost. And this tradition was so advanced, it became so advanced that they could employ what is called prosody. And this prosody helped in making it a little more complicated than just learning it by heart. It would go back and forth, back and forth. And so the learners had to apply it back and forth and start memorizing it. So what they could do is from the middle, if you ask them, they will tell you. If you want them to tell it backwards, they will tell you. So back and forth, it stayed in their memory. The whole Vedic corpus of the literature was maintained, was retained. It did not get lost despite the fact that it was not written. And as a result, you have the oral tradition was very effective because that is why the Pravachana model developed. Because they could tell the story of Ramayana, Mahabharata and convey the message of Dharma to people. And the terminologies got built into the language because of the oral tradition. So many phrases, so many idioms, so many proverbs. As a result, all the languages in India have absorbed that dharma. So in their daily parlance, they would use it. So people understood what is dharma. So that is one of the advantages of oral tradition. And it was highly collaborative because the oral tradition meant that you come together, you discuss it. So collaborative learning, peer learning, everything got built into this oral tradition, which ran through all the models that I gave you so far. And that is how learning developed in India, starting from the Rigvedic period to the modern times. You can see elements of this even after we lost this tradition, almost lost it after invasions. We still have remnants of it here and there. And we now know how valuable they are.